I want to suggest to you that what happened to the Jewish community in the 20s and 30s and 40s up into 1948 is analogous to what is supposed to happen in the church worldwide. And what I mean by that is that Paul says first the natural and then the spiritual. Jesus said, look to the fig tree. When it is green in the branch, you know that summer, the great tribulation is what he's talking about, has come. So he's telling us, Israel, symbolized by the fig tree, watch it, because when it is reborn, you know the tables just turned. The epoch has shifted, and it's time to get ready for a new situation. Now, if what happened to Israel is analogous to what is supposed to be happening to the church, then what we see in Israel is an ethnicity, a nation that is dispossessed from its homeland. They're in exile. They're scattered in all these pockets where they're desperate to be accepted. They're desperate to have a voice. They're desperate to be treated like everybody else. But that was not God's plan. God had sent them into that exile for a purpose, but God was calling them out, and they were missing that calling. In all the cultures where they were scattered, they still had a fragmented language. It had been perverted from Hebrew into Yiddish, but there was still some conglomerate of a language that they were holding on to. They still had customs. There were still these external trappings. They still had the stories. They still read the Torah. They still celebrated bar mitzvah. There was something of an identity that hung on to them, but it was largely privatized. They would don their suits and ties. They would go into the academy. They would be part of the machine, and that's what they wanted to be. In Germany, when the first Zionist Congress was proposed, it was proposed to take place in Germany. The first gathering where they were going to talk about Exodus, in the place where the world's worst genocide would occur just shortly thereafter. And the Jewish community hated Zionism. They did not want to separate. They did not want to go back. They wanted to be assimilated. Only 3% of Europe's Jews were Zionists, and 97% absolutely hated the Zionists. So the German Jews went to the Kaiser government and said to him, we don't want this happening here. Block that Zionist Congress from happening in Germany. And they succeeded. That tells us that it is the people of God, it is the community of faith that is going to be the stiffest opposition to the answer when God starts bringing it on the scene. Because they hate the smell of sacrifice, they hate the cost, they hate the call to be different. They are just getting comfortable in being totally assimilated, and they can't stand this little gnat in the corner of their room saying, you gotta go back, you gotta go back. So they had it in Switzerland, and thereafter, Chaim Weizmann writes, Jews, where are you? Where are you? Later, the Jews would be saying, God, where are you? He was in that Congress you neglected. He was in that movement you scorned. That's where he was. And he was in the swamps of Palestine, planting trees, dancing the hora, and starting something that could be an answer when everything else went sideways. We are told by John the Revelator that in the day of the end, the call is going to come forth to God's people to come out of Babylon so that they don't receive of the plagues and partake of the sins. And so there's going to be an exodus, first the natural, then the spiritual. And just like for the Jews, they had something. They had shadows of culture. They had some aspect of faith, but they didn't have an identity. They had not become a kingdom. I believe the church is in a time where its fragmented shadows of various expressions of Christianity won't be enough, but it's got to come together and find a homeland. It's got to find a place, and I'm not talking about a geographical place, but it's got to cease to be just a church, and it's got to become a kingdom.